Hey, welcome to the Brisbane Small Business Show. And look, today I'm really excited to have with me Samir Bhana. Is that the right pronunciation?
Bhana.
Bhana.
Yep, silent H.
There you go. So sorry about that. Now, Samir has been harassing me about coming on the show for a little while. And I really love your persistence. Thank you very much. Sometimes I can be a bit challenging to get hold of. But I'm really excited to actually talk about how people can make impact, because there is so much noise around in all the social media settings and all that sort of stuff. But before we get into that, I want to find out a little bit about you and find out your background and how you came to find out about Brisbane Small Business and how you came to be doing design work that you do.
Yeah, excellent. So my background is completely left field of actually design and what I do now. I sort of started out in the corporate world as a business analyst, got certified as an enterprise architect, and essentially, my experience was taking businesses, breaking them down into little small bits, and then rebuilding them back up.
I was going to say, so hang on just a second here. So business analysts generally are not creative by design in any way, shape, or form.
No, very analytical, not creative.
They're super analytical, and creative isn't any way that we're going to use to describe most. It doesn't mean they're not lovely people, they're just not normally creative.
No, they're very good mediators and conduits between stakeholders and project team members. But as far as creative goes, definitely not. I will agree with that.
So how did you get from there to here?
In a nutshell, I was doing business analysis and enterprise architecture for a very long time. I got tired of working in the corporate world. I wanted to go out and branch off and do something on my own. And through a series of smaller little other businesses, I listened to a podcast one day. It was a podcast on a guy who had started a design agency over in the States. And to be honest, I don't have really any graphic design chops or anything like that in terms of the previous history. But what I did see, because I was looking at my next opportunity, what am I going to do? And I basically listened to his podcast and thought, this is a really fantastic idea of what he's doing in terms of graphic design, which is a subscription-based model. And I thought, you know what? I wonder if I can do that here in Australia. And that was, to me, a challenge. And I thought, well, I've got no graphic design background. I really am not the most creative. I do have a very good if I see something, if I can get a start on it, or somebody produces a start, I can then see what the end product will be, and then I get very creative. But as far as a starting point from scratch, I struggle with that. It's like writer's block. If you get somebody to write the first paragraph, you can write the rest of the story. So what I set out to do was actually just straight away get myself somebody who's a designer, and because I know how to at least create and build a business and sort of do all the processes and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I did. And 3 years later, I've got a design team, and I still don't do any of the design work myself because I am mostly doing the producing the vision, where we want to go, our clients, and those aspects.
You're actually acting as the entrepreneur and the visionary, not as the technician in the whole story, which is fantastic. The thing I really love about this story is that the greatest challenge for many small business owners is the fact that they get stuck being the technician.
Yes.
Now, when you don't have a design bone in your body, now that's being a little bit unkind, but your words, not mine. I'm going to pretend. It means that you're going to be, and I love working with marketers who are analytics, because what they do is they help solve the problem rather than spending all their time trying to be creative.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing is, I don't even know how to use the software. I'll be honest. I don't even have the software. Your standard Illustrator, Photoshop. But what I did do was I learned, and I put myself through a few courses at the beginning to at least learn the terminology and what is the critical pieces around design. It's just so that I could lead my team in the correct direction, and particularly so that it would be of the best benefit to our clients. So, being very analytical, the other thing that I am is very OCD. I see a little line out of whack or the sentence is slightly off. These things I'm very pedantic about. And so I would be pretty hard on my guys, particularly around that. And I want to make sure that, when it's a design, I know exactly how I envision it and I can communicate that and discuss that with my clients. So I didn't have to know how to use the tools. I just needed to lead my team so that they who knew how to use the tools could produce the output that was required. And so that's really what I was able to excel at.
And I love this story, because that means that you're focused on helping your client get a result that you would buy into, as opposed to justifying your position.
Yes, that's correct. And basically, the way we approach it is, when we design, we don't design just for what our clients want. We also think about it from the perspective of, would we be even satisfied with this ourselves before it even goes back to them? That was critically important as well.
Absolutely. And that's the part that I love about this story. I really do. Now, you have 5 top tips that are going to, so when it comes to design, right, there is so much noise out there. And it seems with COVID, it's only got noisier. And I can't imagine that dissipating when people go back to whatever. So it's more important than ever to focus on getting the process behind your design right, so that it makes the most impact. Yeah?
Yes, correct.
And you got 5 tips for us in relation to that.
Yes, I do. So to basically put those 5 tips into context, we start off with the first tip, which is know your target market. I think this is a pretty obvious one that a lot of people will go, oh, yeah, that's pretty obvious. But the problem is that a lot of people don't apply that or put that into action. Sometimes they don't even know what the context is. So, fairly simply is, if you know that you're going to target a particular niche, then you need to really study and understand that niche, so that when you're producing designs creatively, even for content, for example, you really need to understand the terminology, what exactly resonates with them, so that when you are designing, you're designing for, it's fit for purpose, essentially. That is how we approach it. So when we do designs for our clients, we need to at least have an understanding, even from a simplistic level, what that client does, so that we can put ourselves into their shoes and say, okay, if we're designing for their clients, because that's effectively what we're doing. We're not designing just for them, we're designing for their clients. And
absolutely.
So that's what we need to think about, is our target market, which is theirs.
Anyone would actually think that you read the write-up that I had on this. He didn't actually, because I was running late and only typed it up as he was waiting for me. So absolutely true. We're not designing for clients. We're designing for the clients of clients, which is absolutely critical. So often we get caught up in designs that we think will be awesome and all that sort of stuff. But the reality is that what we think almost doesn't matter.
That's correct. Yes. There's got to be an element of, you're satisfied with the design before you actually put it out. But it's more critical to think that it's not what we think. Ultimately, it's the client, because the client is the one who's going to be putting it out to their audience. They're not putting it out to our audience. It's for them. It's purposely built for their audience. So when they're looking at getting designs done, whether it's for them personally or for their audience, they need to make sure that it's their target market that is taken into consideration, not their own feelings. Design is about,
Now, this isn't saying that your client, the initial client of yours, not your client's clients, but they're important. They're absolutely critical, and it needs to be congruent with their greater message. But at the same time, that can't override what their audience is going to be seeking.
That's correct. And actually, that sort of leads me to the next point, which is constants. So constants being
I love a good segue.
Yeah, exactly. Tip two is really about consistency, which again, we all know, we've all been told about. Your branding needs to be consistent. Your branding needs to be in line with what you've done in the past, etc., in your audience, and that is extremely important. But one thing that I sort of want to make sure that, and just sort of provide guidance on, is that just because you've got a particular brand doesn't mean that you can't deviate from that. It's saying that when you do take an approach, an out-of-the-box approach from your existing branding, make sure that it ties back into it. Don't just go completely left field. Sometimes keeping your branding and everything very strict and the same isn't always the best option. You can bend the rules. You can design that is slightly offshoot from what you currently do, because that also grabs attention to your audience, to your market. But please, keep that branding there so that people can go, I can see this and I can see this and I can match the two together. But consistency is, extremely important, but don't be afraid to step out of the box, because that's sometimes what is going to really grab their attention. It's going to make that impact is that little differentiator, but people can still tie it back.
Absolutely. So be consistent, but don't be scared to experiment.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. 100%.
No, that's fantastic. Have a bit of fun. Have a bit of fun with it. What was the next point? Because I completely forget.
Now, the next point is tip number 3, which is 2 sides of the same coin. Now, essentially, what that effectively is talking about is the pros and cons behind the types of medium that you're putting out when you're doing design. Now, an example of this is print and digital, right? Now, currently in the situation we're in with everything that's going on, digital print took a pretty big hit in terms of being able to produce that, because really we couldn't go out and give material to people. So digital became a very big impact, right? So everything we've been designing, in fact, a lot of our clients, in terms of what we are designing for them, has gone very much from doing A4 and A5 pamphlets and DLs to converting them to digital versions and resizing them to go out via email, etc. But the other flip side of that is, when you're actually out in a restaurant, now that we're starting to get back out there,
now that we're
allowed, people want to actually see a physical product. I think people are a little bit exhausted over the whole digital component of what we've been confined to. And so it's very important to say, or to sort of accept, that we are now able to explore more out and about. Meetings, events will start opening up soon. And so these things we need to start getting back to. We can't just be complacent with, hey, you know what, we've moved everything to digital, so let's just stick with digital because it was working really well. No, people do still want physical items, business cards, pamphlets, menu cards, all these things. The physical touch of it, is still something that people long for. And
a lot of people are very tactile. That's a really important point. A lot of people are tactile. It can be really cool to say, hey, I don't carry business cards. Let's just do a bump of the phones and do that technical stuff. But the reality is, some people much more enjoy, and their recollection will be tied to a physical thing. So if you're not doing that for the convenience of not carrying business cards, there could be people you're missing out on. Really important point.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So really just, approach, when you're doing design, approach it from the perspective of, hey, I might look at getting this both print and digital, consider those types of mediums. But really it's consider both options when you're looking at doing something. So the 4th tip is sign of the times, and this couldn't be more prevalent than right now. So sign of the times is basically saying, when you're doing design, take into consideration what's going on around the world. It's not to say that you got to have a political view and approach that into your design or your creative. But what it's saying is that if there's something happening, like what is happening right now with COVID, it's taking this information and applying it into your creative, into your design, because what you're doing is you're bringing awareness into what it is, and you're, as a business, saying, hey, I understand that this is what's going on, and maybe I can provide information that's going to help other businesses or other people along with it. But it's the basic premise of that is just making sure that you're up to date with what's going on, and that you're designing, based on what the current times and the information that's prevalent as well. So don't just keep it very vanilla and black and white. Include and incorporate what's going on in the world, because sometimes that actually can be more relevant and grabs people's attention because it's the talking point.
Yeah. Now, remember, we're not just talking about business logos and that sort of stuff. We're talking about design for a whole range of things, for different ad campaigns that you're running and everything else. And this can be really, really relevant, because a campaign that you may have run last year may not be relevant right now. And so, yeah, make sure you're staying up. And there was a story that I've got, but I haven't got it, so it's not going to be relevant anymore. So I'll just shut up and let you get on with the next point.
Yep. Though, to really quickly illustrate a very good example of sign of the times, there was an ad when obviously toilet paper was, and there was lots of ads around toilet paper. So I saw a jewelry store, and I'm sure people have seen this, where they advertised a diamond ring for $100 and for free, but the toilet roll cost $2,000-3,000. Now that was a perfect example of using the sign of the times of what's going on in your creative.
It was fantastic for a whole number of different reasons, because it actually brought in an element of fun to the whole story as well. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Which is a perfect segue to my last point.
Hey, I knew I did that one. That was pretty cool. Hey.
No, I like that. That was good.
Every now and again, I get it right.
Yeah. So basically, the fifth tip I have is have fun. Now, this is actually more important than we think. The reason being is, when you're having fun doing your design or doing your creative or receiving it, for example, if you're putting in a request to get something designed up, make sure that you also ask them, hey, have fun with the design, have fun with the creative, because that really comes out in the final creative. When you're designing and you're excited about it, you can see it in the final product. Your audience will see it when they actually look at it and read it. So whether you're a designer, whether you're a business getting something designed, give creative freedom to also say, hey, I want you to have fun with this. I want you to try and see what you can do to bring up the tone in the message, and see what options you have, because it's beautiful by doing that, the positivity that it actually provides by having something that, the audience will look at and go, I really like that. I really enjoy that.
We're drawn to fun, right? As human beings, we are drawn to fun. Yeah. And it's so important to have a bit of fun with what you're doing. My sister works for a funeral parlor, right? She's a, funeral director or whatever. She sees dead people. But when they were doing their website, the people that were coming along to do the video, they couldn't, at first it took them a little while, and they said, this has been the most fun we've ever had. We thought it was going to be such a boring thing. And they actually had a bit of fun about all how they went about what they did. So it didn't mean that they were, it wasn't slapstick comedy and that sort of stuff, because they're dealing with a very serious issue.
Correct, yes.
But at the same time, they allowed themselves to have personality and to show that personality, because ultimately that showed that they cared as well, right?
Right, yeah.
Don't get so caught up in the fact that, oh, but we're accountants, we can't have fun because, this is serious stuff. Very few things are life and death.
No, and the thing is, I have seen some fantastic examples of people who using advertising and doing very creative, fun things in their designs, and it grabs attention. I've seen fantastic billboards along the Gold Coast, Gold Coast Highway, and and so examples there. It's all over. Just you think that it's a really basic design, but if you look deeper into it, you have a really good laugh because it's the fun that they put into it.
And that's it. It really is important. Look, let's face it. Our day moves faster if we're having some fun. Our
Exactly.
clients love us more if we're able to have fun, if we can relate to them as human beings, not as machines. If and let's use the accountant example again. In fact, let's pick on business analysts for a minute, right? It's easy. As a business analyst, you're doing a really serious job and you're doing lots of analysis and that sort of stuff. And it would be easy to get caught up in this is all one big equation, as opposed to, hey, I'm just trying to help you get from point A to point B. And that's really what we're trying to do, right? So remember that, people are drawn to people.
That's exactly.
So have some fun with it. Absolutely. I love that. So your first 5 points. So 1, know your client. Absolutely. Don't just know your client. Know that you want to work with Joe or Mary or Sam and understand everything about Joe, Mary, and Sam. Not just when it comes to business in dealing with you, but what are their likes and dislikes and what are the things that can be, what are they going to make their decisions on? Yeah. When you get to know that, that's when you know your client. Be consistent, but don't be scared to have, but to be scared to be a little bit different and to experiment a little bit with it. Okay.
Yeah, but make sure you keep a connection there.
Absolutely. So many cool examples come out of this around different special interest holidays, from Halloween to Easter to,
yes,
Christmas and all that sort of stuff. You see people doing, being consistent, but different. So you can be different and consistent. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. There's two sides. Remember, it's not just about digital. It's about print, and it's about the connection between the two and how you can bring one into the other and integrate the two. I was talking with Tony Bentel recently from down at Media Booth, and he said, hey, he's a web design. They do a lot of web design and SEO and all that sort of stuff. And they encourage their clients to do mail outs, mass mail outs. And the whole purpose of the mail out, when somebody gets something physical, is to drive them to their website, right? So at the end of the day, don't forget that it's just not a one size, one straight road and everything's digital or everything is physical. It needs to be a little bit of both to get both sides of the brain working.
Yep.
Sign of the times. Remember the times that we're listening in, that we're watching, living in even. It's not been that hard a day for me, and I swear it's too early for me to have been drinking already. But remember the sign of the times. Remember to have a bit of fun with the stuff that is happening at that point in time. Right now we've got a release from the jail cells of our homes and all that sort of stuff, and we're allowed to get out there and have a bit of fun. So have some fun. And that's point 5. Don't be scared to have a little bit of fun, because that will attract more people to your message than anything else.
Yeah. Don't be rigid. Just be a little bit relaxed. Breathe and just go. Look, time's a little bit tough, but it doesn't mean we can't have fun. Doesn't mean we can't put fun into what we're doing as well.
That's it. If my sister's funeral parlor, well, she doesn't own it, but that she works for, can have a bit of fun in their promotion, I think anybody can. That was a good lesson to me. Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Samir, I got to say, thank you very much. I love what you've been saying. I love the fact that you've set up a business where you're not the technician, and that shows, both the intelligence that you have, but also it shows how much you care for your clients, knowing that you can manage the process without actually just being the technician.
That's right. And I think a lot of people sort of get confused by, hey, you're not actually a designer, or you're not actually an engineer, a software engineer, so how are you able to do this? To be honest, what it comes down to is just having the right team. I have a really good team. I have faith in my team. I have an account manager. I have a series of designers and project managers, and they do a fantastic job. I have faith in them that, I'm not a designer. I don't know how to use the tools, but they do. They do it really well, and I trust in them. And I trust in the process because I built the process. around what everything is structured under. So, it doesn't mean that you can't, it really means that you can pretty much do anything as long as you have a structured approach and just, that you trust in other people to complete the job. And I do. I have faith in my team that we're always going to produce really good quality stuff.
Absolutely. Look, I love that message. I love what you're doing. From the guy who isn't really a social media expert, but runs a community of 9,000 small business owners. Thank you very much. Look, I know I make lots of mistakes in our community. Just forgive me and let's move on. So thank you very much for your time, Samir.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And look, we'll catch up. I'm going to share with you on how to get the best method, how to utilize both the business directory in conjunction with the Facebook community to the best possible use of that you can use it. And I'll catch up with everybody else a bit later. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.